Hi, this is Marcus Nakuri, and I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite professors I had at Merrimack College when I attended between 2001 and 2005. In the fall of 2001, my favorite professor was Professor Robert, a.k.a. Bud Cohen. He was pretty much ancient by the time I got there. He was nearing his 70s, or maybe even into his early 70s. And he taught literature classes. He taught major British authors, and he taught politics and literature, as well as news writing, feature writing, and all that for newspapers. He was from Wakefield. I believe he played tennis over the years. And I think he wrote for the Wakefield paper, the paper of Wakefield. Very nice guy. He never required his students to attend class. They had to read the novels, though. They had to take the midterm and final, and they had to pass a midterm paper on a novel of their choice. He was a fun storyteller, and I never missed a class. He expected none of us to go to all the classes, but myself and one of my other friends went to every class together. When I took him for major British authors, I received a B-. And then when I took him again for politics and literature, I received a B. And when he saw me in the hall the next semester, he looks at me and goes, "Mark, I thought you were going to be one of my finest students and get an A." And I told him, I said, "Professor, last semester I got a B-. A B is better than anything. I'm fine with that." "Oh, well, okay." And then he walked off to his office with a smile. He was a great professor. In 2005, when I got the interview to UCLA and then got rejected, I told him, I got the interview to UCLA for screenwriting, and I might be getting into the professional program in the fall of 2005. And he looked at me, and he smiled, and he said, "Write something good." And he walked off to his office. And that was the last time I saw him. He passed away a few years back. He was, I believe, 89. And he attended Merrimack back in the 40s, I think. And he taught there. And he retired from there. He was, I believe, the longest serving teacher at the college. And I can just remember his accent. He had that, the Miller, the Reeve, the partner, major British authors, Professor Cohen, "Hi, Mac," like that. He talked like that. Very nice guy. Reviews online told him to retire. He was getting old, but he was a good teacher. I don't know why people didn't like him so much. I mean, he was older than a lot of other professors, but he was a good professor. Then the next professor I really liked when I had her was Professor Marie Plasse. I took her for Shakespearean drama, and then I took her for 20th century drama and performance by women. And I remember when I had her for Shakespearean drama, she'd give us quizzes. And all she wanted was a line in the quizzes for each character. Who's this character? Who's that character? And I would be writing all this information. And she'd turn to me and she'd smile every day. She'd give these quizzes when she'd give them. And then she'd go, "Mark, I don't need a novel." And I'd tell her, I'd say, "Professor, I need to get 100 on this. I don't want to miss a fact about a character. If I miss a certain fact, I'm going to get a question wrong." So she'd chuckle and smile and stand there and go, "Mark, okay, all right." But I aced every single one of her quizzes. She was a very friendly, very jolly professor who I believe is still teaching at the time at the college. When I had her for Shakespearean drama, I received a B. And when I had her for 20th century drama and performance by women, I received a B-. So she's one of my favorite professors that I had at the college. The next favorite professor I had at Merrimack College was one I'd see in the halls all the time in Sullivan Hall since the beginning. I'd always be ready for class, early for class, on the first floor sitting in the waiting area, and she'd walk by with a friendly smile, "Hello, hello," And I'd ask her as time went on, what do you teach, Professor? And she told me, oh, I teach creative writing. And I was, oh, that's what I want to take. And I told her, I said, those classes fill up so fast. And they go to like the juniors and seniors. And she told me, She agreed because she knew that those classes filled up really fast and they only had limited seating. And I told her, I can't wait to have you for a professor for creative writing. And not only did she teach creative writing, she taught other classes too. So I got to take her for three classes before I took her for creative writing. I had her for intro to literary studies. I had her for Victorian literature. I also took her for detective fiction. And then I took her finally for creative writing. Very sweet professor. I heard that she, I think she graded on a curve. That's what the kids were saying. I don't know. She was a very good professor, very sweet, very fair. And I remember when I had her for interliterary studies, I received a B-. Then Victorian literature, I received a B. For detective fiction, I received a B. And then for creative writing, I received a B-. And I always told the professor, I'd love to move to LA someday. I want to work in television and film. I want to apply to grad schools for screenwriting. I'd love to go to UCLA at one of those schools there. And then when I got the interview in 2004, in the early, spring of 05, she just looked at me and smiled from her desk. She goes, Mark, that's amazing. You've always been talking about that. And what other school to go to than UCLA, huh? And I remember telling her when I had her for Victorian literature, I told her, I said, how can I get above a B- B in these classes? I do so much, I study, and I can't get B+ or above. I'm trying to get that perfect 3.0 or higher for grad schools. And she looked at me, she smiled, and she goes, Mark, a B is not a bad grade. And I told her, I 100% agree with that. But for grad schools and for jobs, I was reading online, you need a perfect 3.0 or higher, or they're not going to care. And she goes, okay. She used to say okay like that. Okay. She was very sweet. She retired a few years back. I forget, maybe about 5, 6, 7 years back, I think. She's been retired for a little while now. But reviews on her, they love her. Everyone loved her. She was one of the 3 teachers I asked to write my letter of recommendation for grad schools. Amazing professor. My next favorite professor is Kathleen Sills. I took Kathleen in the fall of 2003 for a class I really wanted to take, script writing. Now, the description was it was for the stage. They didn't have screenwriting, so I had to settle for script writing. So I'd go to her class, and I'd have all my work done on time. I put a lot of effort into it. And when we read our scripts, some of the kids, or most of them, would say, this is so much for television or film. And I tell them, that's what I want to do. I want to write for that. And they're like, yeah, but this is for the stage, though. And I'm like, all right, I'll tone it down. And Kathleen would always look at me, smile, shake her head, and go, oh, poor Mark, they're doing it to him again. I'm like, I know. So then she gave us journals to write. And I remember one of my journals, I was talking about, I want to be an actor, but I'm too heavy. And I'm not going to get cast because I'm overweight. And then she wrote in a comment, she said, that's so not true. There are roles for people of all different weights, looks, heights, statures, whatever. I remember her writing that as a comment. And then I took her not only for script writing, I took her for Theater 1, I took her for Theater 2, and I took her for History of Theater 2. And in every class, what grade did I receive? All A-. That was my grade she'd give me. A-, A-, A-. So I had 4 classes with her. I received all A-. In theater classes, she'd do an exercise. She'd do a big booty exercise. And she'd sing a song with us. She'd go, big booty, big booty, big booty all night long. Big booty, big booty, big booty. Big booty number 3. And then whoever had number 3 would say number 3, another number. And then that person would say their number and then another person's number. And it would go back and forth. And then she'd do a zip, pow, boink or something. And back and forth to each person in the class. Zip, pow, boink, slosh, got it. stuff like that. It was like practice exercises with the classmates. And then she was one of the 3 professors I asked to write my recommendation for grad schools. And she even asked me, she goes, Mark, do you want me to write it? I'm like, I don't know if I should write it. I'm like, Professor, you know me. You know I want to go to grad school for screenwriting. I've told you. I even told her. I'm like, I'd love to go to LA someday and work in television and film. And she goes, all right, Mark, okay. So she agreed to write my recommendation. Great professor. I auditioned in 2004 in the spring, when she directed A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. I remember she had me read, I believe it was for the characters of Mille Sclerosis, Hysterium, and I believe Senex. It was 3 of them. And I remember Hysterium was one of them. But I remember, I got called back because of my voice, my singing voice. I have a good singing voice. But then, when I was auditioning, reading these characters, I didn't research them. So I didn't have much information on them. So I was just really, reading them. I wasn't, pepping myself in them. I didn't do any of that stuff. So when I got called back, but then I was one of the only few not cast of those callbacks. I was the only guy not cast, and I didn't feel bad. I looked at it as a way that I had more free time to work in my image, because I was losing weight. I'm like, oh, well, whatever, I didn't take it personally. I'm like, more time in sauna, and it helped. I got to lose more weight that spring. But she's one of my favorite professors. Reviews on her, amazing reviews. Everyone loves her. Great professor. Funny, sweet, energetic. If she's still teaching there right now, definitely take a class with her. Amazing professor. And one last favorite professor of mine. He was very hard at first. I was kind of afraid when I took him at first, but I knew him since I declared my English major. Professor Stephen Scherwatzky. My best friend Jessica at the time was also an English major as myself, and I think he was her advisor. And then she took several classes with him. She got mostly A's. In mostly all the English classes, except Cohen. She didn't like Cohen, so she slacked and she got a D, I think. But she'd always praise him. Oh, Professor Scherwatzky, Dr. Scherwatzky. Everyone loves Professor Scherwatzky. So I'd go to him for advising what classes to take. And then he goes, you should take a class with me. And I told him, yeah, I'm gonna take a class with you, but I heard you're kind of, harsh with the grading. And he goes, oh, just take the class with me, you'll do fine. So I took him in the fall of 2003, it was 18th century novel. And at first we had a quiz, and I believe I failed that quiz. And I don't know, he asked for certain questions and certain things to answer, and I didn't know all the answers, so I was like, uh-oh. It wasn't like when I had Plasse. I'm like, Plasse, I wrote everything. For every time she had one character, explain every character, explain the character. He had something specific to explain, and I was like, uh-oh, I don't remember that from the reading. So, and then the first essay, I don't know if I gave him a draft or not, if he accepted the drafts at first. I wrote my first essay, and I received, I believe, a D on the essay. So I said, Professor, can I meet with you during office hours? And he said, sure, Mark. So I met with him. I said, Professor, I'm afraid I'm going to end up with a D or a low C in your class. And I can't do that. I've had all B minuses. And so far I have, 3 C pluses. But it would be better to get a C plus than get a C, in the end. So he goes, okay, Mark, the reason why you had a D on that essay is because you didn't have a thesis statement. You need to have a thesis statement. And I was looking back at all my other grades, over the last couple of years at Merrimack in these lit classes, and I would be getting low B's, B minus, B, a few rare C pluses, but I couldn't get above that B. And he told me, you need a thesis statement. Maybe I was kind of hinting one in all my essays I did over the years over there, but it wasn't a thesis statement. So because of that, maybe that's why my grades were kind of on the B minus B level, and there were very few C pluses over the years over there in the in the English department. So once I wrote a thesis statement for my next essay, it was much better, and my grade rose from a D, I believe it was a D, and it rose from a D to a C plus in the end. And I was like, okay, even though that was my lowest grade in the fall of 2004, he's a good teacher. He advised me. He's my advisor. He steered me in the right direction. He was the most knowledgeable professor, the one that steered me in the right direction out of all of them. I mean, none of them even told me I needed a thesis statement. None of them. He's the one who, you need a thesis statement. I understand that now. But he was the only one that made it clear. He goes, Mark, you need a thesis statement in these essays. In the intro paragraph. You're not stating that. You're just, you're giving an intro body conclusion, but you're not really making a thesis. So once I did that, my grade started improving. And then I said to myself, I'm going to take him a second time in the spring of 2004 for Sex, Race, and Empire. And I did. And he had no tests, no quizzes. No quizzes like in 18th century novel. All we had were essays. And my grade was, I received mostly B minus and B's on his essays in that class. And I told him, I said, Professor, I'd love for you to write one of my recommendations for grad school. You've known me several years. You're my advisor. And he told me, Mark, I'll write it under one condition, that you receive a higher grade than you did last semester. And I was like, okay. And I said to myself, I'm going to get higher than a C plus for sure. And my grade at Sex, Race, and Empire was a B minus, which is fine because he was a tough grader, but he always accepted drafts. I'd always give him rough drafts of my essays. He'd always write down notes, and he always advised me in the right direction. And he was excited when I got the UCLA interview. Mark, great, that's great. So, and then he was teacher of the year, professor of the year when I graduated. I don't remember voting or anything. I don't even think I voted. If I did, maybe I voted for Mahoney or Sills. But that was amazing. I was like, oh my God, Professor Scherwatzky, that's a great honor. He's a great guy. I believe he's one of the heads there now for the English department, I believe. Great professor, very, very knowledgeable. And I know there are a lot of reviews on him. Many students love him. They look up to him. Some of them say he's very hard, which is true. He's a hard grader, but he helps steer the kids in the right direction with essays. So even though he's a harsh grader, he's hard. He's always helpful. He had office hours. He'd always make the students know how to improve their essays. So definitely take a class with him if he's still teaching in the English department.